Okay, this video is going to be about how you actually sort of transition into building the life that you want to live. And the first thing I want to say is that you need to do it in a very gradual manner. You can't just go straight from school and then bang, live on your own. It doesn't work like that. It's something like this is quite a massive step, and obviously some people do not have the privilege to have the time like I did, where I could go back home and I could actually work on things in my head and write things down and take that sort of year to figure out how to balance everything that I need to. That's why you need to do it gradually if you have the chance. If you have the opportunity to do things in a gradual manner, the way I suggest it is to first work on your mental health. That's going to change your perspective on how you operate in every single other thing that you do when you move forward. And how I mean by this is taking something like a journal. I started off doing it every single night, and something else I want to do is talking about how you go into the extreme manner of doing things, just so you can kind of grasp what it's like to do that habit, and then you sort of gradually, you don't phase it out on purpose, but now you don't put so much pressure on yourself to do it. But I'm going to make that in a completely separate video. For this one, doing it gradually will start with figuring out your mental health, figuring out what sort of traumas you had in your childhood. And I've made a video about this before, so I'll ping it up here. But what you need to figure that out. You need to sit and think. You need to sit in a quiet room or in the woods somewhere where it's just you, it's quiet, you're not going to be distracted, and figure out what your traumas are from your childhood, and then you just write about it. You write about how this affects your life, and then you figure out how you can change your way of thinking. And the way I've done this is I just listened to podcasts on this. Diary of a CEO was very good for me in terms of figuring out how to understand your mental health, and a lot of this is in the feminine energy, so don't be surprised if you start acting more feminine in these periods. It's kind of a process I had to go through. And then when I figured out my mental health, I then transitioned into looking at what do I want to achieve with life. What is my ultimate goal, my just cause? And a just cause is basically like a vision of how you want to change the world in a more positive light. And that's not going to be, oh, I want to make money. Why do you want to make money? What are you going to do with the money? How's that money going to benefit other people? Because ultimately your goal has to be to serve other people. Obviously you have to serve yourself first in order. Like I always say to my friends, a great leader knows how to lead himself first, and then he can use those skills to lead other people. But once you've done your mental health, then you move on to your goal, and you sit and you journal about your goal. And at first my goal was very selfish. I wanted to be the greatest player in the world. And then you look at other people who are the greatest players in the world or whatnot, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Muhammad Ali, you've got LeBron James, you've got like Richie McCaw in rugby, Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi. Think about the effect that they've had on you. Think about the effect that they've had on millions of people around the world. Now you see that it's not necessarily serving yourself, because that ultimately burns out. It serves millions of people. You inspire millions of people. They inspired me. Imagine if I get to that level and greater, and then I can have an impact on loads of people that are in a different country in Scotland, where there's not necessarily a massive sporting hero that you could probably say Andy Murray, but then over his last few years of his career, obviously he's faltered, which is not, he's had loads of injuries and such. But as a man, you want to kind of challenge that and build something greater. You always want to be greater than what was before, and that's not for yourself, that's for other people. That's a key understanding when you're thinking about your main goal. Once you figure out your goal, you start figuring out systems that you can use and habits that you can create. I suggest reading Atomic Habits by James Clear. I've read it and I've put notations. I've jotted in the margins different things and really studied the book. I want to read it again in a few months, because I feel like it's good to refresh this knowledge, just so it's fresh in your head all the time, so you can almost quote things from the book as and when you need to. When you've built these habits on how you're going to build towards your goal, then you want to start thinking about how you're going to finance yourself. This is when you want to take responsibility in finances. You want to take that pressure off your parents or whoever's responsible for you financially at the moment. I'm speaking to guys who are like 18 who've just kind of come out of high school, probably still living with parents, maybe going to university, maybe going to apprenticeship, maybe you don't know what you want to do. This system I suggest anyway, because ultimately you figuring out your mental health is not going to only help you. Of course it's going to help you, but think about how that's going to affect every single relationship, your friendships, your romantic relationships, your relationship with your family, your direct family, your wider family, all of that, and people you just meet on a day-to-day basis. That's going to have a massive change of how you feel about yourself and how other people feel about you. You sort that out, and then, like I say, you go through your goals, you figure out the habits, and then you go into your finances. That's a lot of people would say that's the first thing you do, but it's very hard, I found, to, because I tried doing this when my mental health wasn't right, and it's very difficult to figure things out when you don't understand yourself fully yet, which is why you need to do the prerequisite steps before you build into something as large as building your finances, because that's going to be a massive pillar, and it's also something you can't skip, because that's the whole thing of taking responsibility. You need to make sure that you get away from needing to rely on other people for your money, building it for yourself. So whether you're probably gonna have to get a job. That's the quickest way to get money now, or sell some things. Like I sold my Xbox, my old phone. You find things around about your house that you have that you don't use, you don't need, and you sell them. That's a good way to get money, but it's not like a constant flow of income. What you want to do is you want to build a job. You want to find a job, apply to loads of things. It can be as simple as you like, with a decent enough money that you could make enough money to support yourself. Like I had a part-time job before. I've got a new part-time job now, but it pays more hours plus tips, many sort of benefits to the job that I can actually support myself on top of my contract. Of course, if you're not going towards like a sporting career that doesn't pay you extra money on the side, you'll probably need to get a full-time job. But you can't just rely on just the job, because I always find that jobs pay you just enough to stay where you are. What you need to do is build some sort of business. I'm trying to build a business here online with the YouTube and try and create a passive income via that source. I had a clothing brand, Bothy, which you might have heard of. I might have a business card in here somewhere actually. In my wallet. So I was me and my friends started that, but we're kind of leaving that for now, because it's not something that we're all kind of aligning to at the moment. It's more of a passion project that we might pick up in the future, and it's not something we want to expand too much. It's just something we want to give back to the community that we love so much in the outdoor sort of space. But what you want to do is find a sustainable business that's really like it aligns with your beliefs, and it aligns with how you want to impact the world. This is where it comes back to the just cause sort of area. Once you figure that out, you start building these little things outside of your hours that you work in. That is very hard, and I'm struggling at the moment because I've just kind of transitioned away from being at home to taking more responsibility for myself. So I'm obviously, naturally, I have a lot less time to do these things, but as a man you have to go through this sort of difficult periods in life where you have to just almost you sacrifice a lot of things. The amount of like concerts or whatnot, or nights out, holidays that I've given up, which would have been really fun, so I could actually sit and focus on what's most important for me at this point in my life. When I get to my late 30s, I'm retired from rugby or something, I'll probably have a massive pool of money that I'll have saved up, so I can afford more time to start working on these other businesses like Bothy and expand the YouTube and create a podcast, because now I'll have a platform, and then I'll also be able to take time off and go on holidays and these things that I missed out in my younger days. But I'm okay with sacrificing that for now, which is something that you need to kind of come to terms with. Hold on. Getting a phone call there. Let me check this is still recording. Right. So that's basically all. That's the kind of level you need to get to, and once you get to that level, it's literally just about doing the work. From there, that's the period I'm in, so I can't give further guidance on how to get further than that. That's where I am at the moment, in terms of building that sort of foundations in my life, if you will. That's, for me, that's how you do it gradually. That's how you build it to how you need to be acting, how to become a man rather than just being a boy who kind of floats through life enjoying yourself, which is, to be honest, I find more pleasure out of achieving my goals. Like I finished the last sort of leg session in my block, which has been really tough, and I finished that last section yesterday. I'm just sitting in the gym on my own, no music or anything, I'm just staring at the wall just smiling. People are looking at me like I'm weird, but it's seriously satisfying. That delayed gratification gives you so much more fulfillment than it would just going on a night out. And yeah, they're good, and I go out occasionally. On a Saturday night I've got a dinner booked for myself in town. It's also, it's not just for pleasure, it's also part of my new job. I need to kind of understand the town a wee bit more. I'm a concierge at a hotel, so I need to be able to make suggestions and such of places to go, so it's partially my job, and I'm kind of funding that with the tips that I get from work, so I'm not actually taking out of my income, I'm using that and then I'm building on the job. So I have a very very important mindset that I think I'll make another video on. Let me just note that down actually. Is that mindset of, you need to, any job that you have, you need to do it really well. You need to build that habit of doing your job properly. You can't just go to a job and half-arse it just to get the paycheck. You need to actually put in effort, because if you start slacking and stuff, you might lose that job. That's like the main foundation, but it's also a habit that you build with yourself of being the best at that job that you can. When I worked in a cafe, I made sure that I could learn the best I can how to make coffees in a really good way, in terms of like making them aesthetic, making them taste good, and making sure that the customer that I'm serving to gets the best experience, which is the same with my job. I speak to guests at the hotel quite often, so I need to make sure I'm putting out a positive image for the company, and that making that the best I can at that job. But that's for another video. Basically, becoming a man, it happens in steps, and I know it's going to be slightly difficult if you come from a less fortunate background, where I grew up very much in the middle class, and I could have this time to kind of cultivate these things. But sometimes you might just have to get that job and then you start working on your mental health. I always think that that's still the system that you build in. You do it in that order, and I feel like this, I'm not going to try and brag here, but I feel like this is a very valuable video for boys, young men who are trying to become a man and trying to become the best version of themselves, so that the world can benefit from that. That's kind of the whole point of this video. Share it to anybody that you think needs to see this. I think it's a very important message to get out there, and I've kind of used this example in my own life. I've used the steps that I've used, and I didn't consciously have this plan to go through these steps, which was, I kind of had to figure it out. So I'm kind of happy that I can kind of take my experience I've had over the last sort of, since I left 3 years ago, since I left school, to give this advice out to you on a big platform where other people can benefit. So if you find this video valuable, make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it, make sure people are finding out this information, because I think it's very important. See you guys in the next video.